From the back roads and courthouse steps of small-town South Carolina to the late-night studio where the mics never sleep, this is where decisions, rumors, and real stories collide. You're tuned in to the Pot Stirrer Podcast with Jazzy Jeff. Real talk, local issues, no fluff.
Well, welcome to another edition of the Pot Stirrer Podcast. It is Jazzy Jeff here. Now, this segment is actually being recorded at like 7:30 on a Saturday morning. Actually, it was April the 18th. Now, you're going to see this in real time coming up Monday night, so I'm trying to keep things straight a little bit here. We want to do a follow-up with our wonderful friend that we've got to know so well in just the last, actually, I've known Mike for years, okay? His wife was, of course, a school teacher. She taught at Gillette Park, and taught at Code, and taught at Ravenel. At the last of her career, she wound up at Ravenel, I think.
That's correct.
And such a sweet lady. She was a great teacher, and Mike and I have run into each other through work at Clemson University. You are a project manager?
That's correct.
Project manager at Clemson University. So let's dig in, shall we, so to speak. And, of course, last Tuesday night at the city council meeting, the big vote for the Sanctuary Cove. It was the first reading. And I got to ask you, did you just, when the vote was unanimous, what was your feelings like when it came up that it was voted down?
Well, I was pleased and shocked at the same time, to be honest with you. I was I would not have been surprised for it to have been a 5-4 vote, either for or against. In fact, I probably was more expecting a 5-4 vote, pushing it to a second reading. But we will take a unanimous.
One of the things that really that I honed in on that one of the council members said, which was Ernest Riley, made to the statement that he was not going to, he was originally thinking about it, but yet something had changed that totally changed everything for him, and he was an absolute no. And I kind of wonder, I don't know if we ever got the full reason of why that he changed his vote that way. I believe it's due to the simple fact is because of all of the different amendments that were coming in or wanting to be coming in.
I think that's exactly what it was, that Mr. Riley was not in favor of introducing amendments at the 11th hour. Even, in fact, there were two people who spoke in favor of doing that, but I think Mr. Riley actually set the stage for the balance of the councilmen to think about how that was going to go down.
Well, I've reiterated this on the show and then on my personal Facebook page that I walked up at the end after the vote and they adjourned the council meeting and immediately talked to Lakeisha Benson, who throughout this thing has been a real trooper. Lakeisha has given me some very good vibes about what she stands for. She believes in Seneca, and she went across the lines to work within the community. And in this day and age, that's rare to see a politician do such as that. She took her time, tried to get all the facts. She did get the facts. She met with the developer. She met with me. And it was just honestly a great idea just to see that that's what it's supposed to be.
Yeah. She dug in and got information to base her decision on.
And she came out to y'all's home.
Absolutely, she did.
And she looked at that same thing, and I think she walked away feeling the same way that you all did, is that, you know, here it is, you've spent your hard-earned life building this beautiful place, and then all of a sudden you look up and you see 2 floors of a, 5-6 story.
5-story is what was advertised.
Yeah. So, again, city council voted it down.
Yeah.
My question is, how do you feel? What do you think is going to happen now? Do you feel that Tyler will proceed with the 232 homes, or try it again next year, or what do you how do you feel? What do you think is going to happen?
I'm not sure. First of all, I definitely want to thank City Council for their vote, and and how they arrived at that decision, I don't know, but I'm glad they did. As far as what will happen to the property, I've got serious doubts as to whether that they will proceed with the 232 homes that are approved to go in right now. I think there's infrastructure costs, be it roads, sewer, water, the topography of the land. I think there's a whole list of things that make the return on investment for the realtor or the developer questionable. But he knows more than I have in it. It's a nice piece of property for sure. Great location, but there are factors that I don't think a commercial venture is appropriate for that location. So, I think he's got 12 months 12 months before he can bring that back to council. And I just don't know. I don't know if his financiers, I don't know if the hotel, Marriott, still would have an interest in that 12 months from now. I don't know. I have a hard time believing 232 homes would generate the income they need.
If history says anything, this property already kind of has went down through this before. In the original, when it was annexed and the first zoning, it was zoned, of course, what we've been telling everybody, for 232 homes. That was in 2019, 2020. Well, COVID hit. And right after COVID, again, there was no return on the investment. That's what the original first developer that got the property and said, there's not a return on investment. So since 2022-23, this property has just been sitting there. And along comes, now, from what I gathered in asking questions, this has been on the radar for 2 years. This project was on the radar for 2 years.
Right.
We do know that the first contact was made with the city was in November of 2025. Someone in administration, whether it be Xavier down in planning, Scott Mulder, somebody from the city was in touch in November of 2025.
Yeah.
So we fast forward to January and we fast forward to February. It starts the talk then. All of a sudden in March, it's to the Planning Commission.
Yeah, Tyler himself said he had been talking with the city since November of 2025 when he met with the folks at Port Santorini.
So Tyler actually had the first meeting with Port Santorini. So he didn't come down and talk to you all first. It was Port Santorini first.
Obviously he met with you and Miss Benson.
Oh, you're talking about, okay. I thought you were talking about back in November. I'm sorry. I misunderstood.
This was literally the Sunday before the vote.
Right.
So I don't know who all he had talked to prior to that, outside of just the city. And then I know he had the meeting with you and Miss Benson. And then he did an interview with the Upstate Today.
Yep, the Seneca Journal.
Yeah, and so I don't know who else he may have talked to. I know there was a lady, maybe in Port Santorini, that he had responded to her questions.
He sent an email. He did. This lady sent about like 7 or 8 different questions, and he did respond. But it was the thing right after all of this, when it went before the Planning Commission. Correct me if I'm wrong, but were you only given like 15 minutes to speak at the Planning Commission, and that was it?
That's correct. Planning Commission, you had 15 minutes collectively.
So if you had 10 speakers,
or against,
if you had 10 speakers, okay, that's not enough to hear from the community, particularly on a big item such as this. This is a massive development, and you're only getting 15 minutes collectively to speak for or against it.
That's correct.
Okay, and then we move forward. It was on the agenda to be discussed in the planning session or the work session.
Work session, that's correct.
For the city council, and it never got discussed. Y'all were told you could not, that was not on the tap for discussion in the work session. Yes. So here we go. Tyler's only spoke in front of the Planning Commission. He didn't get to speak at the work session, nor any of you all that attended the work session didn't get to speak.
That's correct.
And then all of a sudden, this thing goes to a vote for the regular council meeting on April the 14th. Is it easy, or for me to ask this? Do you think that the way the checks and balances are, that this needs to be looked at and there needs to be a better solution? Planning, work session, city council.
Yeah, I would like to see some changes. Just as an example, the application was submitted, I believe it was February 21st. The Planning Commission meeting was March 16th. First reading was April 12th, 14th.
The first reading was the 14th. That was the day before tax day.
And then the second reading was scheduled for May the 12th, 14th, 16th, whichever that date was. So it was 1 month, 1 month, 1 month, 1 month. Seemed to be a little fast, and maybe I'm going to say in a less complicated, less questionable issue. That's probably fine. My problem with it was when I was trying to gather information to oppose it. One of the things that I wanted was the minutes from the Planning Commission meeting. And I was told I couldn't have them until they were approved. And they weren't going to be approved until the next council meeting, which coincidentally was the day we had to speak. So you had no time to go back, review the minutes, and prepare whatever argument for or against before it was up for a vote. So I think a 2-month period where you have the Planning Commission, then the next month you get the meetings, the minutes approved, and then the next month would be your first reading.
I would say that would be better than the way it is now, because I've said this throughout all of this, that perception is reality. And it's the reality of it is, had I been on the Planning Commission, the first thing that I would have took a look at is I would have read just like you did. You took it and went through line by line, reading it, checking the things that stood out that didn't make sense, or questioning things such as in the original application, we bring up the marina. It's plain as day in there, right. A marina.
Yeah.
It's called due diligence. Each one of those planning commissions, to me, seems like it was already decided before they even got the paperwork. And the lack of discussion and the lack of having not a 15-minute meeting or 15-minute answer or question session, it seems like to me that somewhere in there that the developer or any future developer that's coming needs to have a public hearing, or not even a public hearing, but a meet and greet to meet the community, to ask these questions in a more laid-back, casual atmosphere if citizens actually have questions, and not to feel so rushed. Because there's no way that you can hear from everybody, as big as this project was, as much power that this project had amongst the community, the different thoughts and feelings. You needed at least an hour and a half with the developer one-on-one with the community.
Yeah, that was one thing that, okay, so at the Planning Commission, both pro and con, or the opposition and the developer, you each had 15 minutes. The city council meeting, it was a total of 45 minutes. So, in theory, either side of the issue could have stacked the deck. They could have gotten there early with a number of people and signed up, because they took you in order that you signed up. And so we could have stacked the deck against the other side just by simply having a lot of people there early to sign up and taking up most of that 45 minutes. So, yeah, I think there's some things the city could fine tune, particularly with the more controversial issues.
And then again, we did have the issue where AQD came in and was trying to write names all down on the sign-up sheet to speak, which totally blowed me away. Yeah. But the whole thing about that, actually, they had only gotten involved in 10 days.
Yeah, they were I'm going to say the host of the Port Santorini meeting, like I say, the process, I think, just needs to be fine-tuned. And if the Planning Commission, I'm not saying they rubber stamp whatever is in front of them, but if that's the case, then the Planning Commission could just be dissolved, and it could go straight from the planning office to City Council. and take that hurdle out of the process.
Unfortunately, you have to have a planning commission by state law. That is, for county municipalities, they actually have to have planning, and then they're required every few years that they have to do what they call a planning session, where the community comes in and gives input of what they want to see in the community. And interesting enough, on the podcast, I've brought this up. One of the number one things in the comprehensive plan that was just done in 2022, 2023 was that small town atmosphere. They wanted to keep that rural feeling of Seneca. That was high on that list.
Right.
And if you had went ahead and this had been approved, and still, at some point, one of these developments is going to get through. We're not going to be able to stop all of them. And again, I'm not trying to stop them, but they need to be some better checks and balances to make sure that we can keep up with the infrastructure, that it's not going to put undue burden or stress on the current taxpayer.
Yeah.
That's my biggest issue. There's a video floating around right now that Scott Mulder and Ronnie O'Kelly took a walk through the new Fine Arts Center. And it's great and all that they got $22 million from the state government as a grant to build that.
Right.
No one's having the conversation of how much is it going to cost to run that.
Right.
See,
Yeah.
you got your free money from the state. Well, it's not free. We paid for it. But you've got $22 million invested in this facility. Where's the money coming from to run it?
Right.
Who's going to run it?
Yeah.
You got to have a staff.
That's right.
And those conversations aren't even on the radar. Nowhere is the community being seen about that. Yeah. And that's coming.
Sure.
That's coming.
Yeah, I mean, somebody's got to be a paid, responsible person for that. Now, I know the Walhalla Civic Auditorium
It's volunteer.
There's a lot of volunteers
Right.
there, but they do have a person who books all the events.
Mark Thompson, who does a
yep.
wonderful job.
Yeah. So, but to circle back to
Yep.
transparency a little bit, and I think you and I talked about this the Monday maybe before the vote. Was, SCDOT sort of got their hand called several years ago about sort of lack of transparency. And I'm not going to say they were, bullying their way through projects, but they weren't making it as accessible to the
public to see what was going on.
And the legislature got involved and said, no, you're going to start doing public forums. And I think that would be most helpful, make people feel better about transparency. If the city would do that. Again, not every project deserves that level of scrutiny, but
if it's somebody building one or two homes, no.
Right.
But if it's somebody's wanting to take 150, 200, or even 75 acres and make either a development or commercial mixed, absolutely.
Yeah.
We've got to put these things under scrutiny and making sure that all these questions are being answered before you sign on the dotted line, because once you cross that line, there's no turning back.
Right.
So anyway, well, Mike, it has been a pleasure to work on this project with you, far as making sure we got the information out. And honestly, had I not looked on the city's planning website and looked at the agenda, I may have never known about this.
Right.
And I do occasionally follow what's going on, and every citizen you can see everything. I know it's kind of hard to navigate, but it's available on the county's website, OconeeSC.com, City of Seneca. You can find these information as far as meetings and agendas and the time. And one of the greatest things that we have in this country is the opportunity to go to these meetings and be involved, because at the end of the day, we are the checks. We have to check our elected representatives, and if we find that our elected representatives are not doing the job that we entrusted them to do, then sometimes you have to get vocal. And I think the way we handled it in 100 years was the exact way that I would have handled anything. Is the more vocal we got about this, more people started talking, and then the conversations. It's not that we hate Seneca or we're trying to put Seneca down. It's just, look, we had legitimate concerns here. You stood more to have a whole lot more concerns about this going on than I did. But I recognize this as a whole is going to affect not only city residents, but the people that live outside the city too. It's going to affect them as well. My bottom line, I could be held holding the bag for Seneca tax dollars when they go up on me to pay for some of this. You're in the county, but I understand, and I totally agree, and I appreciate you all and everybody. I got to meet some great people during this, and again, I don't think this is over. I think at some point within 6 months to a year, this is going to come up again.
Yeah, I know. The thing I heard from multiple people throughout these last 2 months was you just got to let the process work. You got to let the process work, and I think it did. I think,
but we had to help it
but
along.
we had to. I mean, we had to, take advantage of opportunities like your show, and I appreciate that very much. To inform people. Now, I don't have a clue if any member of city council or any employee of the city even watched either of the shows.
No. I can confirm that I do know one did.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately there was some words exchanged with one of the city council members that did watch it that took an offense because I pointed out that his son is on the planning commission. And I also pointed out that the mayor's brother is on the planning commission. And if you look up under the South Carolina State Ethics, I'm not saying that it is illegal because the state says it's not, but the point of it is perception's reality. In the general community, when you're sitting here and you have these items come up, the first thing that people are saying, well, that was rigged, or there's something more going on. Because perception is reality. If I'm a Joe Blow citizen and I don't know anything and I find out, well, heck, the mayor pro tem's son's on the planning commission, and then the mayor's brother's on it gives us that feeling of that 60s good old boy. And again, whether it's right or wrong, I don't think you should have family members on boards of a municipality or even on a county level. I just think it's wrong.
Yeah.
But again, perception's reality.
Yeah, it appears to be a little bit of a conflict of interest for sure. But like I say, we were told to let the process work. The process worked. We had to do our due diligence to try and inform as many people as we could, and it worked, I guess. But we'll see what happens over the coming months, whether they start clearing and grubbing that site in the next few days, or if 12 months from now, we're looking at another application for that site.
Well, I understand you're going to be bon voyage going across the big pond, so I'll throw up smoke signals if something starts happening. Okay. You wave at me from Greece. Is that where you said?
That's
Greece?
Correct.
Oh, it's a beautiful place.
Yeah. So.
Go over and see if you can get the time drive-in gravy recipe over there from us.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
All right, I'm going to switch gears. We're going to stop here. We'll come back because this past weekend has been a busy news time in Oconee County. I talked about a sex scandal. It looks like we've got quite a few of them here. From Friday, we had 2 individuals arrested. Also, by the way, for you folks, the FedEx truck did catch fire Saturday morning over at the lake shop. They had a FedEx truck just went boom, and that happened at 10:30. The question is, what is a FedEx truck doing over at the lake shop at 10:30? So anyway, more coming up here on the podcast. Mike, have a great vacation. Thank you as always, sir.
Thank you as always, sir. Thank you, Jeff.
Perfect. All right, there you go. An interview with Mike Parker and I Saturday morning at 7:30 here in the palatial Potster Studios. Welcome in. Glad to have you with us here on this Monday evening as we continue here with the show. And got something very special for everybody. Now, over just a couple of days ago, the chairman of Oconee County Council, which is Matt Durham, sat down with our new County Administrator Stewart Jones and discussed the first 100 days in employment with Oconee County. And there's a couple of things in this next interview that I think you need to pay particularly attention to, particularly in Oconee County. There is some interesting things happening behind the scenes, and he's going to discuss, Stewart's going to discuss a few things concerning this forensic audit. and you need to pay particularly attention. I'm going to go ahead and give you up what you're listening for. Stewart's going to talk a little bit about the potential that Oconee County could have went bankrupt within 2 years. You need to pay attention to this because it's a pretty interesting interview. So what we're going to do right now is shift gears, and we're going to bring that interview up here on our screen as we present. This is Matt Durham interviewing our county administrator on his first 100 days in office.
Hi, I'm Matt Durham, chairman of the Oconee County Council, and I've spent a lot of time with Substacks and social media posts trying to inform the public. But I decided to take a little bit of a different approach. I'm sitting down today with Stewart Jones, our new county administrator. Today marks his 100th day. Is it today or yesterday?
That's today, Matt.
Today is his 100th day as a county administrator. So wanted to sit down with him, let him speak to the public, and let everybody get a chance to know a little bit about Stewart, where he's from, and where he looks to lead Oconee County forward. So Stewart, thank you for coming to Oconee County. It's been quite a busy 100 days. Kind of give us a little bit about your background, how you ended up here, and did you ever think you'd end up in the administrative role of government?
Yeah, Matt, it's incredible to be here with you, as always. And I'll tell you, it's my background. I'm an 8th generation South Carolinian, a person who has worked in the private sector and the public sector. I primarily got involved in government when I saw that government just continued to operate without any kind of care for the Constitution and for limited government and lower taxes at the local level. And so that was back in Lawrence County. And over 10 years ago, I got involved, and it just amazed me. It fascinated me, the things that were going on in local government, which the people didn't know about. And so I was able to bring a new level of transparency, accountability to local government. Had to do things like start my own website and start posting agendas and minutes. My council didn't even want to do those simple things. And so that led to audits of processes, of credit cards, P cards, you name it. We audited those things, and we found tremendous amounts of waste, fraud, and abuse. And so that led me to running for State House years later. So I served in the South Carolina State House for 3 terms. I led on efforts such as the bill to stop the vaccine mandate, which was signed into law. And so we did some incredible things. And so it's been an awesome journey, I'll tell you. I never thought I would be an administrator of a county, but it actually made a lot of sense, coming to Oconee County. And so what I've seen here so far that I want to talk about with you, is just, I think it's going on in communities across the country. It's not unique to Oconee County. I think it's happening everywhere, but there's a disconnect between when we elect our officials and give them oversight and give them the ability to control government, and then what's going on in the actual day-to-day operations. And so that's what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, and that's one thing we talk about as a council too. We ran on a platform, all 5 are Republicans. We all ran as conservatives, and we owe it to the public to have an administrator in the seat on the administrative side that aligns with the same value system that the public elected us to represent. So a lot of people don't understand. I have people who think I have an office in the building every day. County council is the legislative body. We set the policy. We don't run the day-to-day business. And you've been on the legislative side most of your career. I think the biggest challenge on the administrative side is you have direct responsibility for management of people. And that's got to be a difficult task, especially in an organization of 500 plus people. But coming in here, what was the biggest surprise to you from the beginning?
Yeah, I would say the level of things that were being done without council's knowledge. And just to give you an example, our recent audit showed a $2.7 million spending, basically that came from a budget amendment that was completely done without council's knowledge or approval. And so the level that I've seen those things internally, my job and my task has been to identify all those areas where things like that are going on, and then to come up with a plan, new policies, procedures, standardizing based on the agenda that council has given me, and then to implement that plan.
It's hard as a council to make a decision on policy if you don't have all the information.
Yeah.
And you've served in an elected role, and I'm sure you experienced it from the other side where you just have to push to seek the truth. It's not readily available. And we're elected, brought here to represent the people to the government. One thing I've noticed since I've been here, seems to be two kinds of representatives in government. Those who truly represent the people to the government, and those who morph into a role of representing the government to the people, kind of backwards. My goal is to represent the people to the government, not to be part of the government myself. So in 100 days, what has been fixed? What's been corrected?
Yeah. So it's really incredible. The first major thing that we saw in the budget that was just mainly it was a bleed on our entire system was the insurance situation. And that was from going back over about 10 years ago. Internally, I could see where that was going into a deficit around 2014 is when that started happening. And it just snowballed and had come to the point where it was over a $4 million deficit this last budget year. But the way that information was being hidden internally didn't allow the public or county council to see what was going on. And so number one, that was my number one task, is to fix the insurance. Within the first 2 weeks, we held a series of meetings with our previous broker, who I might add, there were so many problems with that. They were making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year on this county while our system was going bankrupt. And so that made me very angry when I started to see those details and see what was going on. So we had to change that. We had to change it fast. And so we're moving to a new system. It's when you have 600 employees roughly. It is not an easy task. And so that's what we're in the process of doing. That's one of the major undertakings that we're fixing right now. That's a major part of our budget, our deficit that we've got right now. It appears like, honestly, about $11 million deficit that we're running for fiscal year 26. And the way we're going to fix that, the insurance is a major part of it. There's also all these underlying issues. Budget reconciliation, I found, was not being done internally. So those on a monthly basis, typically your finance will reconcile to the bank, to ensure that the cash on hand matches our internal accounting. And that wasn't being done. And so we found that had not been done since July of last year. Processes like that can set us up for failure, and create bigger problems. So we're in the process of fixing those things. The major thing across the board, I would say, is creating policies and procedures where that is routine, having an open flow of communication. That was another major problem. Honestly, people were operating in silos internally, and they couldn't talk with each other. They weren't talking with each other. Council wasn't getting the information. Information wasn't even being shared internally.
So one of the key things that was, when we brought you in, we knew we had some financial problems. And I tried to fill you in on the scope of it that I knew. What we learned is council didn't know the full scope. And one of the things you mentioned, which came out from the recent audit, was the unauthorized budget transfer of $2.8 million to cover health insurance overage. A transfer of that amount requires county council approval. Well past, I think it's $40,000, $50,000, depends on what funds from. That never came before county council. If it did, county council would say, hey, we got red flags here with health insurance. We need to be taking action now, not delaying. So we tried to fill you in coming in. We knew we had issues. We didn't have the whole picture, whether it be concealment or, I don't know why we didn't have the picture, why it was being held from us, but it was. But we brought you in, Stewart, and you bring a lot of transparency to the county council, to the public, and that's how you can do government right, is letting daylight shine on everything. Not let anything operate in the dark. What would you say? We're getting this stuff straightened out. The budget stuff is going to get straightened. We're getting policies and procedures in place. What do you have a vision for, say, for the next 6 months, year and a half?
Yeah, one thing to add to that real quick, Matt, is that it's always, what I've seen and what we've seen in government is that it's always an uphill battle. fighting the internal bureaucracy, and the basically what we call the swamp. And when I say that, we've got some good people internally, but in many ways they were being silenced. I mean, I'll just be straight up with you. One other example that I've seen internally that just was put up a bunch of red flags onto our accounting practices and financials. And this is just an example. Things were being canceled out. So there would be, for example, a compensation wage increase, $2 million total, put in as a revenue and as an expenditure. And so when you look at that, you think, okay, that shouldn't be in a revenue at all. I mean, all of it comes from taxes. So it would be an expenditure. But that was some of the red flags that I saw. Moving forward, what I'm really excited about is I'm looking at this budget year, the time we're in right now, and going into FY27 as a corrective stabilizing time. With the plan that we're implementing, we should bring our reserve fund balances back up and be back in a surplus, in a healthy surplus within 4 years, roughly. So a 3 to 5 year window. That can affect our bond ratings and all sorts of stuff. So had the county not taken the steps that you guys have taken, I would say this county would have been completely bankrupt within probably a 3 year period. And so, that's what the ultimate goal is to stabilize our budget, to put us back in a healthy surplus.
So we set a policy, the county council sets the policy. We set a policy fairly recently to set aside certain fund accounts for capital projects and needs. I believe doing that showed this problem earlier, but had we not done that, we'd have no cash to fall back on right now. So we're taking that money that we were setting aside for capital projects, delaying some capital projects, and pulling that back into the general fund so we can continue operating. It's, as you know, as being a representative, sometimes the people let you for a viewpoint, for a governing philosophy, but when you come into the administrative side of it, sometimes in the past it's been like we've been pushing a rope. And I spoke with Councilman Tommy James. I said, before Tommy came on, we had discussions earlier about making administrative change, and we kind of pushed it off. I told Tommy, I said, I wish we'd made the change then. We might could have lessened some of this blow, but I think it's God's timing too, because we made that change at that time. I don't think we'd have Stewart Jones sitting here today, and I think Stewart's the right man for the job to come in here and clean things up and get transparency in order and use the people's money wisely, transparently, and responsibly. So
yeah, there's a couple of principles that I hold dear, truth, transparency, accountability in government, just being honest with people. And I know county council holds those same principles, those same values, so it's an incredible honor to work for this council. We have the third lowest property tax in the state of South Carolina. And I just appreciate the fact that you all are committed to keeping those taxes low. So you can look at any county, any city across the state, and they're constantly working to increase taxes to do those things. And so this council, that is not their agenda. We're working smarter, not harder, with the people's money. So,
well, Stuart, I appreciate you sitting down with me. This is something new. I've not done it before. When I was campaigning the first time 6 years ago, I did some videos and people seemed to enjoy them. I said, well, maybe I should get back to that and connect with people a different way and lets people see kind of behind the scenes what's going on. And anything else you'd like to say?
Yeah, Matt, it's an honor to work with you. And anybody that has anything that they want to bring to us, my door is always open. I believe in open communication, transparency, like I said. And so I hope we continue to be blessed with all that we have here in Oconee County. So
thank you, Stuart. And thank you for watching. And if you have any questions, just send them my way and we'll try to get them answered.
All right, there you go. That was Matt Durham, chairman of the Oconee County Council, sitting down with our brand new county administrator, Stewart Jones, and discussing the first 100 days. And if you were paying particular attention, some of the highlights out of this video that I caught $2.8 million spending without council approval, getting all of the facts, looking for the truth. Again, total deficit $11 million. But the big kicker was potentially Oconee County was 3 years from being bankrupt. 3 years from being bankrupt. And, of course, Matt does say in here that not getting all the information. Listen, folks, I got to be honest. Listening to Stewart, listening to what he says, seeing the action of what he's been doing since he's been here for the first 100 days leads me to believe that I think for once Oconee County may just have the right county administrator. He's definitely got the experience. There's no two ways about that. He's got the experience from being a legislature. He's been on the county council side before. I think he understands the bigger picture. But, folks, 3 years from being bankrupt, that's pretty huge. And, again, coming in and being able to address some of these issues. And, again, taxes, whether you like it or you don't, we haven't really seen a large increase in quite some time when it comes to the county government. I'm interested in seeing other things continue here. But, again, the whole interview I thought was excellent. I thought it was good. And, again, it gets out the facts. This is one of the reasons I believe that the county, with Matt Durham and everybody on the county council, made the decision to conduct a forensic audit. It does not hurt to examine the books, to make sure that the T's and everything are crossed, and make sure that you don't have any loss of money. You know where your money's going. And as a tax-paying citizen, I think that's a great idea. Again, I'm not sure what's going to come out of this forensic audit. It could be done in 3 months. It could take up to a year. It just all depends on what they actually find. And again, we already know that we were getting the reserves back up, getting a surplus in reserves, having that money for a rainy day. Is very important to making sure that Oconee County, if there was some sort of disaster, that we're prepared for it. So, again, I thought there were some excellent points in the video that Stewart Jones made. I think there were some excellent points, period, that Matt Durham was talking about. So, first 100 days, to me, with county government, has been very successful, and I'm very happy and appreciative to see all of what's going on. And the open and transparency. I'm a big proponent of that, and I'm glad to see that things are open and an honest conversation is being had. Well, that's just going to about do it here this evening for this Monday edition of our Pod Stewart podcast. We've got some major things that'll be coming up here in the next few weeks. One of those is that we're going to have Don Mize and Matt Durham in our podcast studios. We're going to be discussing upcoming things coming up here in the next few weeks. We hopefully can get that interview scheduled coming up this week and have it for you coming up on Monday night. If you or anybody else have anything that you think we should know about that we need to check into, let me give you my email address. You can email the show at Jazzy Jeff at jazzyjeffpodster.com. That email address, Jazzy Jeff at jazzyjeffpodster.com. You can email me if you've got something you want me to take a look at. Also, one of the other things that has come up today is apparently there's a memo that has been circling around that city and county officials, along with key stakeholders, have received a new memo tied to an ongoing effort to reshape the county's sewer service framework. And the memo tackles a major issue facing Oconee today. Listen to this. How to manage growth in one of South Carolina's fastest growing counties. How many times have I said infrastructure equals sewer? And in talking about the growth, it also notes the growth is shaped both by utility expansion and by local land use decisions made by local governments. On the question of whether sewer service drives development, the memo makes this point clear. Utility providers operate as businesses and generally do not extend service unless there is enough proven demand to justify the cost of that investment. Also, too, there is a smelly situation brewing with our county sewer system, the Joint Regional Sewer Water Authority. A lot of folks have been complimenting or complaining about the wonderful smell that's coming from the Return Church Sewer Plant, Return Church Road Sewer Plant. So we're going to talk with a couple of folks here in the next few weeks about the smell and what is being done to fix that smell. And yes, I grew up over in that particular area, so I do know how things smell. But anyway, that is going to do it for this Monday evening. I want to thank you so much for being a part of our show. The combined efforts of our last 3 podcasts, we have had roughly over 25,000 people from all areas of the upstate have watched our show. And for that, we're grateful. And it's all about getting you the information you need to know and examining these issues and talking about these issues. And coming up on next Monday's show, we're going to talk a little bit about a follow-up. And this follow-up talks a little bit about what happened to a certain recreation director that was fired in the city of Seneca. And what is the outcome of that? Well, it seems like no one has heard, but I have. And I have the story coming up for you next Monday night here, as that'll be our leadoff story coming up Monday, the next show here on the Pot Stirrer. We'll tell you all about that and more coming up. Folks, hope you have a great week and be safe out there. Again, we're hoping for some rain real soon because we are very, very dry. And we hope that we get some rain real soon. Thank you for joining us here on our podcast, The Jazzy Jeff. It's the Pot Stirrer, and I will see you next Monday.
From the back roads and courthouse steps of small-town South Carolina to the late-night studio where the mics never sleep, this is where decisions, rumors, and real stories collide. You're tuned in to the Pot Stirrer Podcast with Jazzy Jeff. Real talk, local issues, no fluff.